Raider Nation, good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, with some Raiders news that you need to know. Everything that I talk about today is probably the most important stuff that happened over the weekend. I know Labor Day weekend, maybe some people aren't paying attention and their phone is close. I know I was on dog duty. My wife, she's in Paris for a wedding for the whole week. So I was with Chuck. I was with some of Alex's family. So I just wanted to be able to keep you guys up to date on some of the stuff that happened yesterday. Also, some really important Patriots injury news to keep an eye on. The Raiders obviously play the Pats. Crazy that we're finally here for week one. So that's what it's going to be coming up here today. A quick little run through of some of the stuff that maybe you missed it over the weekend. If you didn't know this, we did hit 199,000 subs on this channel. I want to get to 200,000 by Sunday. I can remember the moment when we hit 1,000 subs. I can remember the moment when I dyed my hair for 10,000 subs. Edward 40 Hands for 40,000 subs. I can remember when we hit 100,000 subs. I want to keep this family growing and growing and growing. So if you could, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Let's go to the first move because the Raiders made 4 roster moves yesterday. First one was signing linebacker Brian Asamoah, which kind of takes me down a little bit of memory lane because I liked Asamoah when he was first coming out of Oklahoma. Really good athlete. 3rd round pick, 66th overall to the Minnesota Vikings. He played there for 3 seasons, but really couldn't get it going. I will say, if you're the believer that good coaching is going to be able to help him and you're going to, go with the side of good coaching, there's a part of me where I'm like, man, Asamoah is a really interesting prospect overall. He was with the Titans practice squad, now with the Raiders practice squad. I'll admit, if you're going to look up the PFF numbers, they're not going to be great on Asamoah. Last season, a 29.2 overall grade, a 73.8 pass rush grade, a 42.6 run defense grade, a coverage grade of 28.0. Now, I'll say this. That is in a very limited sample size. It is 34 total snaps. The numbers that I'm going to look at are what he did in 2023, where, again, not a good overall grade. It's that 38.3, but the coverage grade is a little bit better at 72.5. Again, very limited sample size, only 36 total snaps. And then for the year 2022, 121 snaps. It's the season that he's played literally the most. 78.8 overall grade, a 78.1 coverage grade, 74.2 run defense grade. What I think out of Brian Asamoah, and I'm not going to sit up here and go, oh, this is somebody that we could potentially count on, in an actual football game in terms of like playing linebacker on defense. No. When you think of a practice squad addition, you think, all right, how can this guy help me from top to bottom? And, good teams are also good on special teams. For Asamoah, that's what he's going to really help you out do. He's going to help you out in that special teams regard a little bit more. But also, I wanted to at least be able to read up on a note from the NFL draft, and this is from Lance Zerloin on, what he thought of Asamoah first coming out of Oklahoma. See-ball, get-ball linebacker with an itchy, twitchy trigger and explosive pursuit speed. Kind of reminds me of what they're looking for right now from Jamal Adams at that linebacker role, so I almost wonder if they found a certain feature, a certain player. They're like, hey, this guy fits exactly what we're trying to do. Can we potentially get another hybrid like that in Asamoah? Asamoah is adequate at reading keys and diagnosing the action with quickness. His pursuit paths to the football are aggressive, but they are lacking in technique to maintain his gap integrity. When you watch the tape on Brian Asamoah, he kind of looks like he's running around with a chicken with his head cut off, and it's a fast freaking chicken, And I was talking to our Vikings guy, Seeps. He kind of told me the same thing where I don't want to just say Divine Diablo because I don't really think that they're similar, but when he described a extremely athletic player that's just, you want him to be able to figure it out, but he can't quite figure it out. I'm not saying that's where Divine Diablo is now. Divine Diablo is a much better football player than Brian Asamoah, but early on in Divine's career, you're like, man, this guy's an unbelievable athlete. It's just, he wasn't that good at football, and I think that's kind of where Asamoah is. So hopefully, he can get a little bit better in his coverage game. He can get a little bit better, but ultimately, this is a move that's really going to help us out on special teams. Let's go to another move that the Raiders did. They ended up signing quarterback Jeff Driscoll. He was a 6th-round pick in 2016. This doesn't impact Cam Miller now, but I do wonder if it's going to impact Cam Miller in the future or if this is going to impact Aiden O'Connell when he is able to return from the short-term IR. And maybe the Raiders try to move on from AOC, and maybe they try to keep Jeff Driscoll as that quarterback 3, because you could say what you want about AOC. AOC's too good to be a quarterback 3, and I say that because it's based on value. To me, you could have gotten some from Aiden after the year he had last season where he's got 20 starts or 20 games played, 17 starts. So I do wonder if they brought in Driscoll as a let's get him to learn the offense now. We're basically going to give him 4 weeks. When Aiden comes back, maybe we can find a partner for him. We keep Jeff Driscoll as the third quarterback, and then Cam Miller stays in the practice squad. Because for you to keep 2 practice squad quarterbacks and 3 quarterbacks on your roster when you traded for Kenny Pickett and traded for Geno Smith, I personally don't think it's a smart decision. Teams that Driscoll has played on, 49ers, Bengals, you played there for 3 years, Lions, Broncos, Texans, Cardinals, Browns, Commanders, and now he's with the Raiders on the practice squad. So he's obviously bounced around a lot. He's learned a lot of different offenses, and I do know that some teams value that aspect quite a bit. Like they value the idea that, hey, this is somebody that's learned a bunch of different offenses, and for a quarterback 3, I do find that to be interesting. From a moving on standpoint, the Raiders did waive linebacker Matt Jones, and when you see a lot of the qualities that Brian Asamoah brings, I think they're pretty similar to what Jones also ends up bringing. Jones and Asamoah are 2 very good athletes, but Jones, he got exposed in the coverage game. Now, for Asamoah, you're hoping that maybe he can develop a little bit better in being a coverage linebacker, which there were times that he showed that he was athletic enough to go sideline to sideline, but again, kind of just got lost in space. Jones, same thing. Like, I know that Matt Jones is a good athlete, but when you watch this preseason, he was a big-time liability, and it sucks saying that because I'm hoping that he finds another opportunity, but, you also got to be able to call a spade, and well, it wasn't all that great in coverage. Another move that happened, which, again, I'm not really surprised by, and for those of you that follow this show, kind of know that I've talked about Trey Taylor, and I didn't expect him to be on the team just because, again, he wanted to make the 53. There were other NFL teams out there that were calling his name, and maybe he ends up finding a new destination. But the Raiders also decided to move on from Trey Taylor at safety, and, I wish that Taylor could have made it click together. If the opportunities might not have fully been there, but also being drafted in the 7th round, a change of regime, and with the amount of different safeties that this team brought in, maybe it just shows that they weren't confident at all in Taylor. It also, I think, is, a tough one for Taylor to end up making this team. So I will wish him nothing, and I mean this nothing but the best. Before we get into some other, news that happened with one of the players the Raiders drafted, he ended up getting claimed, and he's on another team. All I want to know is this. How was your Labor Day weekend? What did you do? What food did you eat? Who did you hang out with? What types of drinks did you have? I bring this up, and this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. I bring it up because, I was at Alex's sister's house. We were swimming with Chuck, and, all this news ended up happening. And I was like, well, you guys kind of got to see what I was doing yesterday, so I'm having a little bit of FOMO. I want to see what you guys were also doing. So please, let me know in the comments section, how was your Labor Day weekend? I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say. All right, let's go to the next part here, and this is around Tommy Mellott. I was a little bit surprised that Mellott wasn't at least kept on the practice squad, and based on some of the sources and based on some of the message I've received, I think that was more of a Pete Carroll move more than a John Spytek move. Again, I'm just going based off of what I've been told. But for Tommy Mellott, he is now landing in New Orleans, and I think it's kind of a good opportunity for Mellott. I would say it's probably the worst team in the NFL, so he's going to get extra opportunity to see the field. And I know that he's not Taysom Hill, and he's not nearly the same player, but I do wonder if like a Taysom Hill role is going to be on the cards, and it's something that I saw my guy Trace talking about. He's the one that covers the Saints here at Chat Sports, but not the same role, but at least there is a path or a blueprint of, hey, we can use somebody who's really athletic and turn him into this backup quarterback role. For Tommy Mellott, I know he's really excited about it. New Orleans is really excited about it, and again, I will wish him nothing but the best. All right, the final thing that I got coming up here is the important Patriots injury news that if you didn't see, you need to check out. Before I get into that, though, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Preseason football, thank the Lord, it is over. College football weekend was so much fun, man. I watched so much college football this weekend. Bill Belichick. Oh, man, that did not look good yesterday. TCU, though, got to be able to give him credit. Bottom line is this. If you plan on watching football this upcoming season, I want you to also play Prize Picks because it's simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So obviously I'm terrible at multitasking, but I wanted to be able to show you guys the lineup that I ended up submitting here for week 1 because I'm pretty fired up about my week 1 lineup here. And it is a 6-pick flex play, 20 to win, $364. Let me know what you guys think. I took Ashton Genty more on a touchdown, rushing or receiving, give me the more. Geno Smith, more than 14.5 fantasy points. Hunter Henry, the Patriots tight end, more 32.5 receiving yards. I've said it before, I've said it again. I think we're going to have some issues in the coverage game, so I'm going to go with Hunter Henry, and he's going to get 32.5 more receiving yards. Max Crosby, 3.5 tackles plus assists. That seems like an easy one. Give me Mad Max more on that. Michael Mayer, more than 13.5 receiving yards. And then Stephon Diggs, the Patriots receiver, more than 48.5 receiving yards. If 6 of those hit, I turn my 20 into $364. If 5 of those end up hitting, then I get a smaller amount, and I can't see the exact details of how much I get. I'll try to find it out. But bottom line is this. I just wanted to be able to show you guys one of the lineups that I was rolling with. And if you want to roll your lineup with me, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And if you're like, Mitch, I don't know if I believe you. Here you go. There's your proof. All right, let's go to the Patriots injury news that, I'll tell you this, I might put in another lineup if Christian Gonzalez is unable to play because that's where we're going to talk about. The number 1 corner on that defense, I would actually say probably the top defender on that New England Patriots team. He might not be able to play. And so Gonzalez, he remains sidelined. He's got a hamstring injury. He did not practice yesterday. And he has been dealing with it since the team's 5th training camp practice. So since the 5th training camp practice, I mean, guys, we're talking about July. You're probably, because the Raiders, they reported what? Veterans reported like the 23rd or 21st, somewhere in that regard. And that's after the 5th practice. So I'm saying very early August or very late July that Christian Gonzalez has been dealing with a hamstring injury, and he's still dealing with it. And hammies are fickle, right? You don't want to over-rush it because then you could be dealing with something the entire season. But this is what Mike Vrabel, Patriots head coach, had to say. I wouldn't anticipate him being out there today. That was him talking yesterday. Hopefully his situation improves. He must continue to work hard to get back. We need him to make sure we're doing everything we can do to help him. He's working hard. He's trying to improve. He wants to be out there. Whether it's, say, 1 injury, it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks. One's going to be 1 or 2. Everybody heals differently. So I think you can hear maybe a little bit of the frustration of Mike Vrabel's voice of being like, dude, we are 6 days away from our season home opener against the Raiders, and we don't know if our best cornerback's going to be out there and playing. So for all Raider fans out there, I do think it's really important for you to keep up to date on what exactly is happening around Christian Gonzalez. Before I get out of here, I do want to note that Jabril Peppers is still available, and Peppers said something yesterday. I'll probably talk about it in a little bit more detail today. I got a few different stories that I want to cover on today's Raiders report, but Jabril Peppers still available. I don't know how the Raiders can look at this defense and go, yep, that's the one we're going to roll with. I'm not trying to knock anybody. I do have confidence in this regime. I do have confidence in our guys, but still at the exact same time, I think we're having a little bit of the Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew conversation again. We're sure there are quarterbacks, but you can look me all day in the eyes and say you have confidence in them. I'm going to look at you and say we're just not good enough in those areas. And that's kind of how I look at this secondary. Time is going to tell, but if it was up to me, I'd go out and I'd get Jabril Peppers. All right, y'all, enjoy the rest of your day. I will be live later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, here on the Raiders Report. Make sure you guys are subscribed.